In the beginning, there was no sound, only the echo of a heartbeat, lost between time and nothing. The air was thick, like the breath of the world had been held for centuries, waiting for something to move again. Bruce did not wake to light, he woke to memory. A pulse beneath his skin whispered secrets he had buried in silence. His hands trembled as he felt it again, the vibration of power hidden under layers of fear and guilt. He remembered fragments, a lab, a flash, the scream of a machine tearing through space and sanity. The silence around him wasn't empty. It was watching him, breathing with him, as if the shadows themselves knew his name. He took one slow step forward. The ground cracked beneath his bare feet. But he didn't look down. His reflection in the dark glass before him began to ripple, like water disturbed by something unseen. He reached out. His fingertips met cold glass, and for a moment, he saw not himself, but the other, the thing that lived beneath his skin. Its eyes opened within the reflection, glowing with a furious calm, ancient and endless. He froze. His breath vanished. The voice came not from outside, but from within, soft, deep, and patient. You tried to hide me. The words weren't spoken. They were felt, vibrating in his bones. He wanted to answer, but his throat burned with silence. The heartbeat grew louder, like a drum from the depths of the earth. He whispered, "I'm not ready." But the mirror didn't care for readiness. The figure inside it moved when he didn't. Muscles tightened. A low growl echoed between them, not of rage, but of awakening. The air began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling like rain in slow motion. His reflection leaned closer until the two faces almost touched. And then, with one final breath, the glass began to melt away. Energy surged through his veins. His skin glowed green, veins like rivers of light, tracing every motion. The heartbeat became thunder. The silence became alive. His eyes opened fully, and the world remembered his name. For the first time, Bruce understood that the monster was not his curse. It was his truth. The thing he feared most was never the beast within, but the strength he had denied himself to feel. As the chamber around him trembled and lights began to flicker, he stepped forward, not as Bruce, not as a man trying to escape his past, but as something the universe had been waiting for. He looked into the distance, beyond the walls, beyond the sound, and whispered to the darkness that had once trapped him, "I'm home." The air began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling like rain in slow motion. His reflection leaned closer until the two faces almost touched. And then, with one final breath, the glass began to melt away. Energy surged through his veins. His skin glowed green, veins like rivers of light, tracing every motion. The heartbeat became thunder. The silence became alive. His eyes opened fully, and the world remembered his name. For the first time, Bruce understood that the monster was not his curse. It was his truth. The thing he feared most was never the beast within, but the strength he had denied himself to feel. As the chamber around him trembled and lights began to flicker, he stepped forward, not as Bruce, not as a man trying to escape his past, but as something the universe had been waiting for. He looked into the distance, beyond the walls, beyond the sound, and whispered to the darkness that had once trapped him, "I'm home." The lab was gone, but its echo remained, a vibration deep within his mind, where light bent and memories screamed. Bruce stood in the ruins of a thought, surrounded by fragments of glass and equations that no longer obeyed the laws of reality. He could still smell the iron and ozone, the ghost of electricity crawling through the air. He closed his eyes and saw it all again. The machines, humming in perfect harmony, the pulse of gamma light slicing through the dark like a blade. He remembered his voice shouting over alarms, telling himself he could control it, that science was stronger than chaos. But the universe had other rules, rules written in rage, not reason. Somewhere in the dark, he heard the hum of the reactor. It was faint, but alive, a rhythm too familiar. He turned toward the sound, and the ground beneath him rippled like liquid. The walls began to form, not real walls, but echoes of what once was. The lab was rebuilding itself around him, memory by memory. Screens flickered to life, displaying his notes, his formulas, his mistakes. The words blurred, rearranging themselves into something alien. He reached out, tracing one glowing line with his finger, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. Then he heard the voice again. This time, it wasn't his. It was colder, mechanical, almost divine. "You tried to separate us, but we were never apart." He looked around. The room shimmered, like heat rising from steel. His own voice echoed back at, but the experiment wasn't about control. It was about creation. And creation never asks for permission. The light grew brighter, swallowing the room. His reflection appeared once more on a cracked monitor. But this time, it smiled back. The green glow spread through the cables, through the metal, through his veins. The hum of the reactor became a chorus. He stumbled forward, gripping the edge of the console. His heart pounded in rhythm with the machines. The pulse that once terrified him now felt like a call home. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of the monster in his blood. He was afraid of what would happen if it ever stopped. The reactor roared, the lights shattered, and in that blinding moment of chaos, Bruce understood the truth he had spent his life running from. He was not the product of an accident. He was the consequence of evolution, the universe trying to remember what strength feels like. When the light faded, only one figure remained standing. His shadow stretched across the ruins, taller, heavier, alive. He looked at his hands, trembling, radiant, and whispered to the silence, "This is what they tried to destroy." He stood before the mirror that wasn't made of glass. It wasn't a reflection. It was memory made visible. The air around him hummed, vibrating like a pulse trapped between two worlds. Shadows formed shapes, and those shapes turned into fragments of himself, broken, distorted, but real. Bruce stared into it. He saw the man who wanted control and the monster who wanted freedom. Two versions of the same heartbeat, pounding out of rhythm. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "What are you?" The reflection smiled. It wasn't a grin of anger or madness, but of understanding. "I'm everything you tried to bury," it said without sound. "Every thought you silenced, every scream you swallowed." He wanted to turn away, but his feet were rooted to the ground. The floor cracked under his weight, yet he didn't move. He had spent his life running from what he couldn't name, the thing inside him that felt too strong, too wild, too alive. The mirror shimmered again. Now he saw moments, not of rage, but of pain. The first time he lost control. The first time someone called him a monster. The first time he believed them. The reflection spoke again. "You thought I was your curse, but I was your shield. You broke, and I held you together." The words cut through him like light through fog. All those nights of isolation, every failed attempt to fix himself. It wasn't the monster that destroyed him. It was denial. He took a step closer. His reflection did the same, not as an echo, but as a partner. The air between them glowed faintly green, humming with a heartbeat neither could claim alone. Bruce whispered, "If I accept you, what happens to me?" The voice answered softly, "You don't disappear, you evolve." Silence followed. A deep, endless silence. Then came the sound of his heartbeat, slow, powerful, steady. It wasn't two rhythms anymore. It was one. His reflection reached out a hand, and this time, Bruce didn't hesitate. He placed his palm against it. The surface was warm, alive. Energy flowed through his body, not violent, but peaceful. The divide between man and monster dissolved like smoke under sunlight. He closed his eyes, and for the first time, he felt whole. No fight, no fear, no running, just being. When he opened his eyes, the mirror was gone. But the world around him looked different, brighter, sharper, real. He could hear the quiet heartbeat of the planet beneath his feet, matching his own. He whispered into the still air, "I finally understand." And somewhere deep within, the voice, his voice, answered back, "Welcome home, Bruce." The silence broke like glass beneath thunder. The ground trembled, and with it, the air seemed to shatter into 1,000 invisible hands. He stood in the center of the chaos, calm but alive with power. The kind of power that didn't come from anger anymore. It came from truth. Bruce could feel every vibration in the world. The hum of metal buried deep underground, the static of electricity crawling through his skin, the pulse of the planet beating beneath his feet. It wasn't rage anymore, it was rhythm. He remembered the first time he'd lost control, how everything had burned, how the sound of his own roar had terrified him. But now that same sound felt sacred. It was no longer destruction. It was declaration. The light around him began to bend. Dust lifted from the floor and swirled in slow motion, caught in invisible gravity. Each breath he took sent ripples through the air, as though the world itself were breathing with him. He closed his eyes. The heartbeat returned, slow, deep, steady. He heard the voice again, not from within, but everywhere. "You were never created by rage," it said. "You were revealed by it." Energy began to flow from his hands, veins glowing brighter, his skin shifting from flesh to something ancient, something elemental. Gamma wasn't poison, it was light misunderstood. The beast wasn't a curse, it was evolution speaking in a language humanity had forgotten. He took a step forward, and the walls around him began to melt, not from heat, but from presence. Reality rippled, folding around his consciousness like paper on fire. He could see memories, his and the world's. Every explosion, every war, every man who had ever screamed for control. He whispered, "It was never about control." He whispered, "It was never about control." The voice replied, "It was about remembering what power means." The floor split open, green light pouring upward like the breath of the earth. He spread his arms wide, not in fury, but surrender. And in that surrender, the chaos obeyed. The storm quieted. His heartbeat slowed. The light dimmed to a gentle pulse beneath his skin. For the first time, rage and peace lived together, not as enemies, but as balance. He looked at his reflection in the shimmering air. No longer Bruce, no longer monster. Something new stood there, something whole. He whispered, "I am not the weapon, I am the witness." And the silence answered, "Then rise." The world around him dissolved into pure light, and from the center of it, Hulk, not as destruction, but as rebirth, opened his eyes once more. He stood before the mirror that wasn't made of glass. It wasn't a reflection. It was memory made visible. The air around him hummed, vibrating like a pulse trapped between two worlds. Shadows formed shapes, and those shapes turned into fragments of himself, broken, distorted, but real. Bruce stared into it. He saw the man who wanted control and the monster who wanted freedom. Two versions of the same heartbeat, pounding out of rhythm. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "What are you?" The reflection smiled. It wasn't a grin of anger or madness, but of understanding. "I'm everything you tried to bury," it said without sound. "Every thought you silenced, every scream you swallowed." He wanted to turn away, but his feet were rooted to the ground. The floor cracked under his weight, yet he didn't move. He had spent his life running from what he couldn't name, the thing inside him that felt too strong, too wild, too alive. The mirror shimmered again. Now he saw moments, not of rage, but of pain. The first time he lost control. The first time someone called him a monster. The first time he believed them. The reflection spoke again. "You thought I was your curse, but I was your shield. You broke, and I held you together." The words cut through him like light through fog. All those nights of isolation, every failed attempt to fix himself. It wasn't the monster that destroyed him. It was denial. He took a step closer. His reflection did the same, not as an echo, but as a partner. The air between them glowed faintly green, humming with a heartbeat neither could claim alone. Bruce whispered, "If I accept you, what happens to me?" The voice answered softly, "You don't disappear, you evolve." Silence followed. A deep, endless silence. Then came the sound of his heartbeat, slow, powerful, steady. It wasn't two rhythms anymore. It was one. His reflection reached out a hand, and this time, Bruce didn't hesitate. He placed his palm against it. The surface was warm, alive. Energy flowed through his body, not violent, but peaceful. The divide between man and monster dissolved like smoke under sunlight. He closed his eyes, and for the first time, he felt whole. No fight, no fear, no running, just being. When he opened his eyes, the mirror was gone. But the world around him looked different, brighter, sharper, real. He could hear the quiet heartbeat of the planet beneath his feet, matching his own. He whispered into the still air, "I finally understand." And somewhere deep within, the voice, his voice, answered back, "Welcome home, Bruce." There was no more darkness, only the pulse of existence, steady, infinite. He stood on the edge of a city that wasn't real, a horizon between memory and meaning. The sky shimmered with green auroras, swirling like the breath of creation. For the first time, Bruce wasn't afraid of his reflection. He had become it. He felt the world differently now. Every molecule, every frequency, every life connected in one heartbeat. The rage that once blinded him now gave him sight. He could see the energy in everything. The sorrow of machines, the laughter of atoms, the pain of the stars. He remembered the scientists who tried to define him, to lock him in numbers and theories. But he was beyond equations now. He was the answer they were too afraid to ask. He walked slowly through the field of broken glass that once was his lab. Each shard reflected not a man or a monster, but the infinite faces of change. He saw humanity's reflection there too. Small, afraid, but beautiful. The voice returned, softer now, almost human. You've seen what you are. What will you become? Bruce smiled. For the first time, I don't need to choose. He raised his hand, and light flowed from his fingers. Not as fire, not as destruction, but as creation. The air shimmered with particles of green and gold. The ruins around him began to rebuild themselves. Not metal, but energy woven into new shapes. He was rewriting matter with memory, reprogramming the universe one heartbeat at a time. The clouds above parted. The wind carried whispers, not of fear, but awe. He looked toward the horizon where dawn met eternity and spoke the final truth he had learned through pain and peace alike. The monster was never my punishment. It was my purpose. The sky pulsed brighter. The earth answered with light. And in that moment, the Hulk wasn't a myth or a mistake. He was a bridge between chaos and creation. A new kind of God, not born from worship, but from understanding. He closed his eyes and let the light consume him, not to end, but to begin again. And somewhere in the pulse of the universe, the heartbeat that started it all continued to echo forever. The silence broke like glass beneath thunder. The ground trembled, and with it, the air seemed to shatter into 1,000 invisible hands. He stood in the center of the chaos, calm, but alive with power. The kind of power that didn't come from anger anymore. It came from truth. Bruce could feel every vibration in the world. The hum of metal buried deep underground, the static of electricity crawling through his skin, the pulse of the planet beating beneath his feet. He walked through a corridor that had no end. The walls pulsed like living nerves, alive, electric, whispering memories and voices that weren't his. Each step echoed, not through space, but through time. The ground beneath him shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting pieces of his past. A child crying, a man shouting, a monster breaking free. Bruce felt them all at once, every version of himself coexisting in this neural labyrinth. Each heartbeat resonated through the walls, flashing memories as bursts of green light. It wasn't pain, it wasn't fear, it was remembering. He reached out, touching one of the walls. It rippled under his hand like water, showing him fragments of laughter, faces, failures. He saw the people he'd hurt, the lives he'd saved, the worlds he'd destroyed, trying to find peace. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Why can't I forget?" The walls answered in silence, glowing brighter. Then a voice, deep, calm, familiar, came from everywhere. "You built this place to keep me out, but I was always here." The air thickened. The corridor began to twist, turning into an endless spiral of light and shadow. Bruce stumbled forward, breathing heavy, but the sound of his footsteps turned into heartbeats. The corridor wasn't a path. It was his mind, looping infinitely between who he was and what he feared to become. He stopped, and in that stillness, he realized something terrifying and beautiful. The corridor wasn't holding him prisoner. It was waiting for him to open the door. He whispered to the unseen voice, "If you're me, show me the way." The light dimmed, leaving only one pulse ahead, faint but steady. He followed it, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. Every flicker of light became slower, deeper, quieter. The air felt warm now, peaceful. And for the first time, Bruce Banner wasn't running down a corridor of fear. He was walking through the memories that made him human. He found himself standing in an endless void. No sound, no wind, only a faint reflection of his own shadow stretching infinitely before him. The ground beneath his feet glowed with dull crimson veins, pulsing with life that wasn't his. Then, from the distance, the shadow moved. It rose, taller than mountains, shaped like him, but built from darkness. Eyes like burning coals stared down, unblinking. Bruce froze. The shadow spoke with his voice, deeper, broken. "You called me a curse. You chained me. You feared me." Bruce clenched his fists. "Because you destroy everything." The shadow laughed, the sound shaking the world. "No, Bruce, I destroy your illusions." The air cracked with light. Lightning flashed, illuminating both figures. One human, one monstrous. For the first time, they faced each other without rage. The storm wasn't around them anymore. It was inside. Bruce stepped forward, the light of his chest faintly glowing green. The shadow's veins pulsed brighter, red shifting into emerald. They were reflections of the same force, split by guilt and denial. He whispered, "I'm tired of fighting you." The shadow leaned closer. "Then stop pretending you're not me." Silence. The two stood inches apart. breathing the same air, sharing the same heartbeat. Bruce lifted his hand. The shadow mirrored him. Their palms met, dark and light, flesh and fear. The contact unleashed a surge of energy that rippled through the void, shattering the illusion of separation. The world around them dissolved into waves of green and gold. He felt no pain, only release. The monster inside him didn't roar this time. It exhaled. And for the first time since the day of the accident, Bruce Banner didn't see a monster in the dark. He saw a man finally brave enough to face himself. He stood at the center of a storm that had no sky. Winds of light and shadow twisted around him, screaming without sound. It wasn't made of air or rain, it was made of thought. Every emotion he'd ever buried tore through the air like shards of glass, spinning faster, brighter, louder. Bruce tried to move, but every step felt like walking through memory. Each gust carried whispers, regret, rage, guilt, hope. They circled him like predators, like lovers, like truths he couldn't escape. The world bent inward. Faces appeared in the storm. His fathers, his mothers, strangers, soldiers, scientists. They weren't real, but they felt real. Each one shouted something different, yet every voice said the same thing: control it. He dropped to his knees, gripping his head. Lightning of green energy struck around him, each flash revealing fragments of his life. The first experiment, the first transformation, the endless years of fear. Then came the voice, not the shadows, not his own, something older, the voice of the storm itself. You think power destroys, it said, but it's the silence that kills. The storm intensified, colors twisting into chaos. He could feel his heart beating too fast, his mind fracturing under the weight of itself. But instead of resisting, he stopped fighting. He let the storm take him. He rose slowly, spreading his arms as the wind slammed against his chest. Energy rippled through his body, not to tear him apart, but to rebuild him. The storm wasn't his enemy. It was his reflection in motion. He closed his eyes. The wind passed through him instead of around him. Each breath became calmer, deeper, slower. The storm began to fade. What was once chaos now moved with rhythm, like breath, like music. He realized the storm wasn't outside his mind. It was his mind. And when he accepted it, it obeyed. The sky cleared, revealing no ceiling, no ground, just endless light. He whispered, "I am not my anger. I am what survives it." And as those words echoed through the void, the storm bowed and became still. The silence that followed was soft, almost holy. From within the light, a small figure appeared. A boy, no older than 10, barefoot, holding a small glass vial that glowed faint green. Bruce froze. He knew that face. It was his own. The child looked at him, eyes wide, but not afraid. "Is it over?" the boy asked. Bruce wanted to answer, but his voice broke before it could form words. He knelt down, lowering himself to the child's height. Their eyes met, one full of years and guilt, the other full of innocence and curiosity. The boy held up the vial. Inside it, tiny particles of light floated like dust caught in sunlight. "This is what you tried to destroy," the boy said, "but it's what kept us alive." Bruce reached out, his massive hand trembling as he touched the glass. It was warm, alive. He saw memories flicker inside it. His first dream of saving the world. His mother's smile. The first equation he ever solved. Everything pure he had forgotten lived inside that little vial. He whispered, "I wanted to protect you." The boy shook his head. "You wanted to forget me." The words hit harder than any battle. Tears welled in Bruce's eyes, not from sadness, but release. He realized the child was never gone. He had just stopped listening. He placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. The child smiled, and the lab around them began to dissolve into white light. The boy whispered, "Don't fight for me anymore. Just remember me." Bruce nodded, whispering, "I promise." The child stepped back and faded into the glow. But his voice remained, calm, strong, eternal. "Now you can wake up." And as the light consumed everything, Bruce Banner felt the weight of years lift from his chest. For the first time, the man and the boy were the same heartbeat. The light returned, not blinding, but gentle. He opened his eyes and saw the world reborn. The ruins of the lab had turned to rivers of green and blue light, flowing like veins across the earth. Every piece of destruction was now creation. In the center of it all stood two figures, himself and the shadow. They faced each other one last time, silent. No anger, no fear, only recognition. Bruce took a deep breath and extended his hand. The shadow did the same. When their hands met, the air shimmered with energy that felt infinite. Light poured from their chests, twisting together into spirals that rose into the sky. The ground trembled, not in fear, but in awakening. The two forms began to merge, their outlines blurring, their colors fusing, emerald and blue, chaos and calm. He could feel every heartbeat of the planet, every whisper of life pulsing through him. He wasn't man or monster anymore. He was both, and neither. The voice inside him spoke one final time. You were never meant to choose between power and peace. You were meant to become both. As the light engulfed them, he whispered, "This is what I am." The storm vanished. The world exhaled. And standing in the stillness was something new. A being not defined by anger or fear, but by understanding. The Hulk opened his eyes, calm, radiant, infinite. He looked toward the horizon where dawn was breaking and whispered softly, "Balance." And for the first time, the world whispered back. He stood at the edge of the world reborn. Mountains stretched like sleeping giants. Rivers glowed with the color of new life, and the sky opened as if welcoming him home. The air was thick with the hum of creation, soft, steady, alive. Bruce, or what was once Bruce, watched as light spilled across the land. The ruins of steel and stone below shimmered under golden dawn, no longer ruins, but foundations for something greater. Nature had claimed what man had broken, and now life returned, not by science, not by control, but by surrender. He could feel it, every tree sprouting, every current moving through the veins of the planet. It was as if the earth itself had been waiting for this heartbeat to return. For years, he had feared his power, treated it like a curse that separated him from the world. But now he understood. It was the bridge, a connection between man and the living force that breathes beneath all things. The wind carried voices, distant, human, He listened, not as a god, not as a savior, but as a witness. The world no longer trembled beneath his feet. It grew. He whispered to the horizon, "We were never meant to destroy what we feared. We were meant to understand it." The light answered in silence, warm, infinite, forgiving. He took a breath, feeling the pulse of the earth sync with his own. For the first time, the monster within and the man without breathed together. And in that breath, a new world was born. He knelt upon the soil, not to fight, but to feel. The ground beneath him hummed with life. When his hand touched it, warmth spread outward, green and blue light blooming where chaos once reigned. He had spent a lifetime chasing strength. Now he understood. True power was gentleness. As plants rose beneath his palm, his reflection shimmered in the soil, not of anger, but of peace. He whispered to himself, "I carried rage like armor, and it kept me alive, but it also kept me alone." The earth beneath him responded, not in words, but in pulse. It accepted him, forgave him. Behind him, the ruins of machines and broken cities melted into dust, carried upward by sunlight. He watched them fade and thought of every battle, every scream, every moment he'd believed he was beyond redemption. But now, peace had weight, real, solid grounding. He could feel its gravity pulling him home. He looked to the sky and smiled. He didn't need to roar anymore. The silence was enough. They stood before him, fragile, mortal, human, and yet he saw no fear in their eyes, only wonder. For years, he had been a myth, a weapon, a story told to frighten children. But now, the children stood closest to him, their hands reaching toward his. He lowered his palms slowly, letting one of them touch the roughness of his skin. Their eyes met, and something ancient passed between them. Understanding. The scientists watched silently. The soldiers lowered their weapons. No one commanded, no one begged. It was simply stillness. In that stillness, Bruce felt something he hadn't in years: belonging. The monster they had feared had become the mirror they needed. He whispered, "You see me now, not as what I was, but as what we can be." The light around them shifted, golden, soft, like forgiveness taking form. For the first time, humanity and power existed in the same breath. No walls, no war, only connection. He raised his hands to the heavens, not in anger, but gratitude. Energy flowed through him like rivers of living light. It surged upward, merging with clouds, bursting into waves of green and gold across the sky. Every corner of the earth glowed in response. Oceans shimmered, mountains breathed. Cities woke to a dawn that felt alive. He closed his eyes and felt everything. Every heartbeat, every voice, every life. It was all connected, an infinite rhythm echoing through the universe. The power that once consumed him now healed the world. He was no longer its prisoner. He was its pulse. As light poured outward, he whispered, "This is not destruction. This is remembrance." The sky bowed in color, and in that moment, the earth remembered what balance truly meant. Every corner of the earth glowed in response. Oceans shimmered, mountains breathed. Cities woke to a dawn that felt alive. He closed his eyes and felt everything. Every heartbeat, every voice, every life. It was all connected, an infinite rhythm echoing through the universe. The power that once consumed him now healed the world. He was no longer its prisoner. He was its pulse. As light poured outward, he whispered, "This is not destruction. This is remembrance." The sky bowed in color, and in that moment, the earth remembered what balance truly meant. Every hero has a story, and this one just began. If you felt the power, don't just watch it, follow it. More stories are waiting in the light.